So, good morning everybody, and I welcome all councillors, members of the public to the latest meeting of the North Northamptonshire Executive, and I'd like to welcome those who are watching on YouTube. If members could keep their microphones muted unless invited to speak, and if you could make sure your laptops and mobile devices are also on silent as well. So we move on to the agenda items. Agenda item 1 is apologies for absences.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Chair. Thank you very much. The only apology we've received is from Adele Wiley, the Chief Executive.
Thank you. Councillor Binley is running late due to his child being poorly, but he will be here shortly. So move on to item 2, minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of March 24th. They're on page 5 to 24 of your agenda packs. Are there any comments in accuracy to the minutes that are held? No. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please, to introduce, move the minutes? Thank you, Councillor Howell and Councillor Mercer. Thank you. Second that. Can I have a show of hands, all in favour, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. As we move on to item 3, members' declarations of interest. Members, do you have any members' declarations of interest? Councillor Bundy.
Chair, I have a personal interest in item 6, but the monitoring officer advises me that I can stay in the room.
Thank you very much. Any other? No, that's noted. Thank you very much. We move on to item 4, notifications of requests to address the meeting. I'm not going to go through them all here, but I will call everyone up individually on the items that you wish to speak upon. So, performance indicator report. So I'd like to invite Councillor Bundy to introduce this report.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide an update on the Council's performance across a range of indicators as measured by the Council's suite of key performance indicators. It provides assessment up to the end of period 11, which is February 2024. Within the KPIs 23-24 set, 28% of the indicators are reported on a monthly basis, approximately half are reported quarterly, and 19% are reported less frequently than quarterly. In this report, 45 indicators are reported, 44 are monthly, and 1 is a quarterly report where the data was previously unavailable. In period 11, of those KPIs with a target set, 16 indicators are exceeding target, 4 indicators are within tolerance of target, 13 indicators are performing below target. For those indicators where polarity has been determined, performance has improved for 17 indicators, deteriorated for 15, and 11 changed by less than 5%. And the direction of travel could not be determined for 2 due to unavailable data. 17 of the 23 tracking measures have polarity determined, 8 have moved in a positive direction, 2 have moved marginally, and a further 7 have deteriorated by more than 5% during the period. I'm sure members would like to comment upon performances within their own areas, but with that, Chair, I'm happy to propose the recommendations of paragraph 3.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bundy. Members, have you got anything that you want to say in relation to the KPIs in your areas? Councillor Brackenbury.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. I'm just looking at the place and economy growth and regeneration KPIs. I welcome the improvements in 2 of them, but you will know, Chair, that we are monitoring the outturn and performance in the planning service very, very carefully, and will continue to do so.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Chair. Just to highlight BBF 27, which has shown a huge increase in the percentage of child support work being done within the 20 weeks time limit. It has increased from 4% to 57% from January to February. So that's great work being done in that department.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edwards. So, looking around the table, there's no other hands up, so that's been noted, and I would like to find a second, as Councillor Bundy has moved the report. Councillor Brackenbury is seconding that report. The recommendations are on page 26 of your agenda packs. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. Right, so we move on to item 6, the future of Kettering Leisure Village options review. And I would like to invite Councillor Emily Feredovich to address the meeting.
Councillor Fedorovich on the end there.
Just come up to about here.
Thank you very much. And it's really good to see, I sat on the scrutiny committee, which saw these options come forward. And I think I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that, as was sort of discussed, the one of the issues with this was the fact that what was raised was the prudence of this coming forward at this particular time. One thing that I kind of wanted to raise in terms of the solutions and options going forward is that we spent money on this report, and that was raised at the scrutiny meeting, but ultimately the main issue facing us is trying to make sure that Phoenix is supported to stay within, say, looking after Kettering Leisure Village and continuing to keep that open. What really I would propose that we kind of look at going forward is trying to support and be that convening factor between KLV and the community groups that have come forward to try and support the facility. That hasn't really seemed to happen as much as we would have liked up until this point, and I think that's something that we're kind of really missing in terms of kind of focusing a lot of energy and literally finances and money looking at options that are largely theoretical, whereas actually we really need to be looking at how we can convene and use our power to support the existing operator to continue on what they're doing. But otherwise, I appreciate that there's a lot of work going in, and we do need to look at these sorts of things to some degree, but I would definitely like to see more of that going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Feredovich. I'm glad you acknowledged there was a lot of time and money spent on getting this report prepared, because often when a motion is brought, it requires a lot of staff time to sort of put the information in behind that report that comes forward. So it's something that we're very mindful of on the executive, and thank the staff and officers who put into this report and led us to this point. So thank you for acknowledging that. So I'd now like to invite Councillor Jim Hakewell to address the meeting.
Thank you, Chairman, and I concur with you with the effort that's been put in. It's just a year since the devastating news of the then imminent closure of Kettering Conference Centre, formerly and by many still known as the Kettering Leisure Village. I appreciate there is now an awareness within the executive of how significant the facilities are to Kettering in particular, and the importance of working with the operators, largely due to the massive community reaction to the prospect of it closing just 1 year ago. I'd like to make 3 particular points. Firstly, the long-term viability and commitments. While the document outlines various short-term actions and the current status of agreements, it does not provide a clear and detailed plan or commitment for the long-term financial sustainability of KLV. Given the historical challenges and the ongoing need for significant funding, what are the specific long-term strategies to ensure KLV remains financially viable without requiring disproportionate ongoing subsidies or risking sudden closure due to financial insolvency? 2, community engagement and input in decision-making. The document mentions engagement with local stakeholders and strategic management discussions, but lacks detail on how the broader community can have a structured and continuous input into the decision-making process. How will the Council facilitate ongoing community involvement in the governance and the future planning of KLV to ensure it meets the needs and expectations of local residents? Should we have representation at all meetings concerning the KLV, a dedicated KLV Community Committee or task force? 3, contingency plans for unexpected challenges. The document extensively discusses lease arrangements and potential management models under different scenarios, but lacks a contingency plan for unexpected challenges, such as economic downturns, changes in management, or significant maintenance issues? What are the specific contingency plans to address sudden or unforeseen difficulties that could threaten the operation or even the real existence of KLV? And as we make the point about financial sustainability, are there any leisure facilities in North Northamptonshire that are financially viable? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hakewell. Just wanted to pick up on a couple of points that you made there. So we were always very aware of the importance of this facility to the residents of Kettering and obviously the wider residents of North Northamptonshire. Kettering Leisure Village has been at the heart of the community for many a year. Hence why myself and the team led upon some negotiations with the two parties that were involved. And I think it's probably fair to say if we hadn't used our ability as a facilitator locally, that we may well have been looking at a completely different scenario today. So I'm very, very pleased that everybody came to the table. And I'm also pleased that there was such a strong pouring of support from the local residents who, cherished Kettering Leisure Village. And, I continue to support what they're doing there and pay tribute, obviously, to the organisation Phoenix Leisure, who are continuing to invest in the site. So thank you for your comments. So on that, we have no other speakers, so I will hand over to my very able colleague, Councillor Helen Howe, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. First, before I introduce the report, I'd just like to pick up on some... I'm just being recorded straight off. On some of the...
Sorry,
yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you there,
Thank
Councillor Howe. I just want to refer to the monitoring officer about what's going on with the recording that's on us at the moment. Councillor Hakewell, you have been warned before about recording, and it comes under 3.9 of the disorderly conduct by councillors. At a meeting, any councillor, in the opinion of the person presiding, misconduct themselves in any way, the person presiding on another councillor may move that the councillor may be not further heard. If the motion is seconded, shall be determined without discussion. So if I could encourage you not to record us individually, but record the meeting as a whole, that would be very much appreciated. So if you could stop recording us directly and record the meeting as a whole, otherwise I will ask you to be removed. You've still got your camera up.
Thank you, Chair. Can you just confirm that from where we're sitting over here, it looks like it's directed here rather than it's capturing the entire room?
Jolly good. Well, if you could just make sure that you record the whole meeting, although the meeting is being recorded already, but it's down to you if you wish to record, but just don't make it on individuals. Okay, so Councillor Howe, as you were.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just like to address a couple of the points raised by the speakers. Thank you for coming today to speak at this meeting. Councillor Fedorovich, yes, the money was spent on the report. Obviously, that came from the motion that came from full council. So we had to do the due diligence, we had to do the investigations because that was asked of us. So yes, there is always a financial cost when we're asked to do investigations and reports on things like that. The support from the officers is ongoing, I can assure you. It's constant. We have a direct contact with them constantly to ensure that things are progressing in a positive direction. The long-term prospects of KLV, well, we can only look at it at this moment in time at a snapshot. The paper does highlight options should something happen in the future. None of us are mind readers. We've also got to understand that this is a commercial operation. We don't really have any input other than as a sort of a critical friend into the running of their own private commercial business. So I'd just like to stress that this council can only do so much, but it is absolutely up to the private commercial operator how they run that business. We can encourage them to do to make things better or to keep the place running, which is exactly what we're doing. But again, it is a commercial business. So I shall move on now to present the report. So following the threat of closure to KLV in May 2023, when Compass Contract Services decided to serve notice on their landlords, Phoenix Leisure Management, the council passed a motion in June asking for a business plan to be prepared to address the feasibility of the council stepping in to run KLV, and it is still referred to as KLV. The report is presented in direct response to that motion and confirms and clarifies the legal ownership of the KLV site, and also confirms that the council's options are limited in terms of exercising control over it. A report came to the council's executive in August 2023 setting out plans to develop an options review for the future management of KLV. Subsequently, Max Associates, the same consultants undertaking the wider work to provide an overarching active community strategy framework, including an active community strategy, a playing pitch strategy, a sports facility strategy, and a future management options report for the whole of Northampton's leisure estate, were appointed to produce the options review for KLV, and that review is attached to the report at Appendix A. The report also sets out the work that was undertaken by the council's executive and officers to broker a deal between Compass Contract Services and Phoenix Leisure Management to keep KLV open during the summer of 2023. That solution was that CCS surrender their sub-under lease to PLMS at the end of August 2023 after a 2-month handover period. Since the 1st of September 2023, Phoenix Leisure Management Services set up a new trading arm and TUPID staff from CCS and have been running KLV under a concession to the existing lease relating to the sports arena facilities and the theatre. To support Phoenix stepping in to operate KLV and reduce the likelihood of its closure, the council agreed to a 2-year temporary amendment of the obligation on Phoenix to use best endeavours to stay open, requiring Phoenix to use reasonable endeavours to keep the sporting facilities open. Phoenix have been working extremely hard to rebuild the business from a low base last year, and whilst the conference and soft play facilities remain closed and the theatre is still rebuilding, indications from Phoenix are that they are committed to the site and to growing the business to make it sustainable for the future. From Phoenix's perspective, the site is absolutely viable. They are investing into the site and want to take every opportunity to grow the business and sustain and increase public confidence in it. The ownership of the site is clarified in the report in paragraph 4.2 to 4.6. The freehold ownership sits with BQ Farms, but they have passported all responsibilities to the council in 1991 via a 116-year lease, with 93 years left to run. The council, formerly KBC but now NNC, further passported responsibilities to the leaseholder, Phoenix Leisure, in the year 2000 by way of a co-terminus lease expiring in 2116 at a peppercorn rent. The lease to Phoenix also provides positive obligations on the tenant to operate and manage the sports facilities and theatre, including the provision to keep the facilities open to the public. These obligations do not include other elements of the building, such as the gym and conferencing facilities. Ownership of the whole site and buildings, therefore, by way of the 2000 lease to Phoenix, currently sits with Phoenix until 2116, at which point the responsibility reverts to the council as leaseholder, but then immediately reverts to the freeholders, BQ Farms, as the council's lease also runs out in 2116. The council does not have control of the site as a result of the lease in the year 2000. Due to the requirement in the lease to keep the sports facility open, the council provides an annual grant to support the sports facility, as well as a smaller grant for the theatre. In the year 2023-24, the grand total for this is £357,000. The grant increases annually in accordance with the RPI. Legally, the council has limited management step-in rights to the sports arena, and these only arise if the venue closes for a minimum of 2 days and does not give the council control of the premises. If the council were to enforce the step-in rights, should the leaseholder then decide to step back in and manage the site again, the council, if it had stepped in, would have no option but to remove itself from the centre. Therefore, the council stepping in is not an option. Following on from this motion, the options review concluded that the council could open negotiations with Phoenix to surrender their lease at a premium to the council. The cost of a negotiated surrender is currently unknown, as it would be dependent on Phoenix bringing this option forward. A condition survey of the building and on business growth and profitability at the point of sale. Market value does not reflect worth to the council, nor necessarily does the price Phoenix would accept to surrender the lease. The option to negotiate a surrender of the lease is a matter for Phoenix to bring forward, but to do so at any cost to the council is not recommended. The report goes on to introduce the options review undertaken by Max Associates. However, the options set out can only be considered if the site is in control of the council, which it is not. Estimated costs associated with these options are outlined in section 7.1.6 of the report. These costs are in addition to the funding already provided. The council has a duty of best value, and therefore it must ensure that it receives this when considering management options for KLV, both in the short term, if it were to obtain control of the site, and in the longer term. So in conclusion, and in direct response to the council motion, following assessment from options, it is not viable for the council to take on operational control at this time due to the nature of the legal ownership of the site. Furthermore, if that were to change and the council was in control of the site, the assessment of options also confirms that it would not be financially viable for the council to run the site itself, as there is significant cost detriment to the council. It remains vital that the council continues to proactively undertake its duties as landlord for an important local facility via the existing lease obligations and continues to engage proactively with the existing tenant over their future plans. And I would like to thank the members of the Scrutiny Committee for their input following presentation of this report at their meeting on the 25th of March. KLV is a place of great importance, not only for the local community, but for the whole of North Northants. And while we can encourage Phoenix to engage with their users, ward members, town and parish councillors, and other local stakeholders, they are a commercial business, and ultimately that is in their gift and not ours. Communications with Phoenix continue to be positive, and they are investing in the site and considering options and plans for the future of the site. This council will continue to encourage and engage with them going forward, and we will review this position regularly. I would like to thank them for working with us to find a solution to keep KLV open. And as I said, whilst it is not financially viable or the best value for this council to step in and run KLV, Phoenix Leisure Management have indicated that they do consider the site to be commercially viable. I'd just like to finish by thanking all those who have been involved in producing this paper and working with us to keep KLV open. So therefore, Chair, I propose this executive note and endorse the recommendations as set out in section 3 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Howe, for that very in-depth report, which is useful. Members, I'm just looking around the room. Is there any comments to be made in relation to this report? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to express my thanks to the officers for creating this very detailed report that clearly states our position. I'd also like to put on record my thanks for Freedom Leisure for their commitment to keeping the site open, and they obviously see it as a for seeing that it's a viable option for them and the commitment and the investment they've put into it, but would also encourage any community groups, if they've got some ideas that they think could be used at the facility, that they go to KLV and represent them directly, which I'm sure the officers would help support.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rowley. Any other comments from members? No. So, on the report here, we've got a very in-depth report. So what I'm going to do is come back to you, Councillor Howe, just to summarise what you have just heard, and then I assume you're going to move the report, and then I will look for a seconder.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, I can assure everybody that our officers are working extremely hard with Phoenix Leisure Management, assisting them in any way that they possibly can to keep the facility open. And the outlook is really positive, I would say, at the moment. That is all the indications that we are getting from Phoenix. They are committed to the site, and as I said, they do consider the site to be commercially viable, even if it isn't commercially viable for us as a council. So yeah, with that, Chair, thank you. I propose the recommendations in section 3. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So the report has been moved by Councillor Howe. Could someone like to second that? Councillor Binley, thank you very much. So the recommendations, Executive, are set out on page 48 of your agenda pack. They've been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we move on to item 7, North Northamptonshire Council All-Age Carers Strategy, 24 to 29. And I'd like to invite Councillor Leanne Buckingham to address the meeting.
Good morning and thank you. I note that the Council hasn't had a strategy like this before, having in the past opted to adopt the county-wide strategy. In 3.3 it mentions very bluntly that the county-wide strategy, which is written by the carers predominantly, doesn't meet the needs of all Northamptonshire carers. And whereas that might be true, it might have been kinder to have written from a starting basis of the carers strategy. We have then gone on to create our own. Only 33% of carers receive direct payment. This was coming from the strategy's background. Yet on page 29, the strategy states that there already is a one-stop shop for financial advice. In engagement, we need to ensure that 77% of carers are opting not to take their direct payments. A case brought to us only this week of a lady who has become homeless, who is actually a carer for her parents, is soon to be moving into temporary accommodation. This is going to impact on her ability to be able to deliver care, so I hope this strategy will be able to support her and people in her situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckingham. So I'd now like to invite Councillor Mercer to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, thank you, Councillor Buckingham, for your comments. I'll address those before going on to the report. We have a mixed model, and that's why some people had to choose the universal service rather than as you suggested, the direct payments. We do find, there are many people that are not accessing the support, and that's one of the things that we want to do, is to extend it to others. We do, yes, this is the first one for North Northamptonshire, We acknowledge that there was a previous one for all of the county. We felt it was time we had our own. Okay. So the report is seeking approval for an all-age carer strategy for 2024-29. And this relates to unpaid carers, though apparently they don't really like being that term themselves. And as we've just said, the Northamptonshire Carers Association produced the previous report. It is better, though, that we have our own strategy just for Northants. Carers have been heavily consulted in developing the strategy. However, it will be reviewed regularly by a carers co-production group. So this approach ensures compliance with the Care Act 2014, on which we're assessed by the CQC. Supporting carers offer is in place, delivered by the Northamptonshire Carers Association. This expires on the 30th of September 2024, and this offer is outlined in Appendix B. The strategy will work alongside and complement this offer, and a new offer will be commissioned to carry on after the expiry date. The strategy will help us to comply with a vast amount of legislation in this area. Through consultation in a number of ways, 5 priorities were identified: identification and recognition, information and advice, carers' breaks, a life alongside caring, and joined up systems telling my story once. A carers forum will be set up which will lead on the implementation and review of the strategy. The draft strategy went out to public consultation from the 29th of January 2024 to the 3rd of March 2024. And the results of this have been incorporated into the strategy. You'll see the strategy that the number of unpaid carers is estimated at 5.7 million across the UK, but it could be as many as 10 million. The value of unpaid care is equivalent to a second NHS. In North Northamptonshire, the number of carers is around 29,000. 10,190 adult and 756 young carers are registered with our supporting carers service. The current offer is shown on page 129 with help and advice, support groups and respite services, plus extra services for young carers. The carers strategy is also closely linked with the adult social care strategy, which we considered at the last executive. So as the 5 different categories, I will expand on them a little bit more. Identification. It's been identified that more needs to be done to identify carers. To help with this, we intend to roll out a 2-year grant-funded accelerated reform fund in partnership with the voluntary sector and also focus on hidden carer groups. On information, we'll also improve information on the website and produce a Carers Insight Pack. We'll work with the voluntary sector to set up a one-stop shop for information for carers and produce an online directory of carer services available. On breaks, we will review carer breaks and how we can improve them and undertake a mapping exercise of available respite, plus what can be delivered by the voluntary sector. Under Life Alongside Caring, we'll work with the Children's Trust and Northamptonshire Carers to map services available for children who are carers. We'll also raise awareness among employers, schools and colleges, plus assist carers wanting to return to work or access education, for instance CV writing, interview skills. We'll review and promote social groups available to all age carers. Under Telling My Story Once, we'll work to make improvement across the integrated care system and develop a carers portal so they can track their cared for person through adult social care. We'll measure our success with satisfaction surveys and set up an expert by experience carers board. Specific measures of success for the 5 priorities are outlined on pages 157 and 158. So, Chairman, the recommendation on page 122 at 3.1 is that the Executive approve the North Northamptonshire All-Age Carers Strategy 2024-29.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mercer, for the introduction to that report. And I must say it's a very good report, and thank you for David Watts and his team for bringing forward this long-awaited piece of work. I like the bit about tell my story once, because I think frustration is often where you have to say the same thing over and over again to various departments, but fantastic to see that come forward. I'm going to open this up for debate with members now. Members, do we have anything to say in relation to this? Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Chair, and I welcome this report, and I think it's, you know, it's the right time. There are so many amazing people out there that give unpaid time to be an unpaid carer. 1 in 10 of our society in North Northants are unpaid carers, and that's just truly amazing. And a lot of them will do it just because they love doing it and because they want to do it, not because they have to do it, and we should absolutely acknowledge that. But I want to look at children as young carers, because there are so many children that are still in education that look after a mum or a dad or a grandparent because because it's their choice to do it, and also because there are no other carers available to do that. The support that they are getting is amazing and fantastic, and I welcome this report for that to continue.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Brackenbury.
Thank you, Chair. And in common with Councillor Edwards, I very much welcome this report. I think that as he's said, I mean, the unpaid caring is an absolute triumph of you know what people do in looking after their loved ones, whether they're young, whether they're old, whatever. And so, you know, it's an enormous tribute to the effort that has been put in by 1 in 10 people across Northamptonshire. I welcome the detailed report. I thank Mr. Watts and his team for all the hard work that's gone into it, and I welcome the support packages which are offered to these unpaid carers who do all this for the love of doing it, and not for financial reward. But I do welcome the training, I do welcome the support groups, and I above all welcome the opportunity for respite services as well. So it's an excellent report, and I wholeheartedly endorse it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. Councillor Mercer, did you want to just sum up before you move the report?
Yes, thank you. Yes, it's a very good report. Yes, I also thank the officers for all the hard work that they've done to produce that. And Councillor Edwards, yes, I agree. There are so many amazing people out there. There was a little video in with the pack, and I watched the young people and how the support that they were getting and the mixing with other carers really helped them. And the fact that there's 1 in 10 people doing this is really a testament to their devotion. Yeah, Councillor Brackenbury, it's a lot of hard work gone into this, and the support packages are really welcomed because we need to give them that support so they can carry on, particularly things like the carer breaks to give them a little bit of respite. It's really welcome, and we want to support them in whatever way we can.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mercer. So you've moved that report, and I'd look for a seconder. Councillor Edwards, well done, thank you very much. So the recommendations are set out on page 122 of your agenda packs. They have been moved and seconded. Could I have a show of hands in favour, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we now move on to item 8, Northamptonshire Serious Violence Duty Strategy 23 to 25. And I would like to invite Councillor Lynn Buckingham to address the meeting.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. Obviously, I welcome this partnership for reducing serious violence. My part, I would like to raise the issue of young people. Is it time to think about bringing back more youth organisations that will be able to help young people move forward? It talks about going into schools and educating young people, But what about all those that are left behind, that aren't in school, that are excluded, that are homeschooled for one reason or another, that have those adverse childhood experiences that they haven't been able to come back from? We used to have a really good, sort of youth team, which, if some of these young people were directed away from gangs and, county lines and the drugs and, things like that, it would help so much. And the strategy, although it goes so far, I think on youth it could be expanded a little bit more. One of the things that the strategy also talks about is the need for understanding, for the partners to come together and recognise what each of the partners need to do. And I think that, it's a plan on a page at the moment, but I'd like to see that be put into action, getting on the streets, working with the kids, all those things that, but I welcome the report and the strategy. I just hope that it will move forward in a positive way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckingham. So I'd now like to invite Councillor Leanne Buckingham to address the meeting.
Good morning and thank you again. This report identifies that 49% of all violent crime relates to rape and sexual violence. We see many campaigns that look to tackle the culture of knife crime, and I can't help but wonder, is it because partners believe it's easier to challenge youth culture than it is to challenge misogyny? I urge this council and those who attend the partnership to ensure that violence against women and girls and sexual violence becomes a top priority for the action plan for the year ahead.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckingham. I'd like to invite Councillor Rowley now to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to address some of the comments that were made, first of all, Councillor Lynn Buckingham, the issues with young people, the Saints Foundation and Upskill U, to name just two of those, they already do a lot of work with children, as you mentioned. We've also got specific work going on with young people as well, within this strategy and outside of that. And the comment about the other departments, the interagency cooperation was pretty profound at the launch party. It was very clear that the agencies involved in setting up this strategy were talking to each other and are continuing to work with each other to make sure that this strategy is a success. In response to Councillor Leanne Buckingham, yes, that is a priority. It's across the whole board. It's not just picking on the easier options. It will look at everything. Moving to the report, as has been said, the SNA identified that 7.1% of all crimes over the last 5 years have been serious crimes. As has already been said, rape and sexual offences accounted for 49% of those, knife crime 25.9% and robbery 17.3%. This is obviously disproportionate as well because of the rape and sexual offence against women and children. So it is a priority to look at this. The report has been headed by the Police and Crime Commissioner because he's the governing power for this area, but with input from local authorities, the Constabulary, Integrated Care Board, NHS, Probation and Youth Offending Services, Fire and Rescue Services, as well as our officers have a heavy involvement in creating this report that outlines 17 recommendations for action over the next 2 years. The funding will help us to bring this forward, and the agency or organisations that are helping us are the Saints Foundation, NDAS, Family Support Link, the Safety Box, which is a knife crime intervention via probation, Upskill You, which work in schools, Northampton Police, Free to Talk, Northamptonshire Children's Trust, Bleed Kits and Mannequins, Blue Butterfly, Primary School Health Relationship Programme, and Crime Stoppers, as well as our own officers. The funding that received by the NNC will go towards 50% of the salary costs for the Safety Community Officer for serious violence reduction within the council. The 17 recommendations are highlighted in the report. In the strategy, I won't go through those individually, and therefore recommend the report as per the recommendations in 3.1 for the reasons in 3.2.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rowley. I mean, it's clear to say in today's world that there is no excuse for violence against anyone, women, children, men, and so on. It just shouldn't be happening, and I really welcome this report. And I'd like to thank, obviously, Stephen Mould, the Police Fire Crime Commissioner, who's brought this forward to this point to oversee the intern of this report. But there is no need for for this type of thing. So welcome this report. And members, do you have anything to say in relation to the business in front of you? Councillor Mercer.
Thank you, Chair. Being on the Police Fire and Crime panel, I've been following this very closely, and I must say that the violence against women and children has been an absolute priority of the current Commissioner, Stephen Mould. Also, a huge amount of work has been put in with youth workers and against domestic violence and helping people with with ACE problems. There's a whole department been set up really, and this is one of the many things that will working together with all these partners really will strengthen this work and hopefully make it a much safer place. I'm particularly concerned, obviously, the items that come into my portfolio, the domestic violence and the substance misuse, and I'm really pleased that a huge amount of work is being done in that area, both by the statutory organisations and by voluntary groups.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mercer. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Chair, and I welcome this report too. Just to go back to Councillor Bucking about young people, and we are doing a lot with young people, but you're right, a lot of it is around going into schools, but not all children are in schools. They're home educated or they're not in school at all. So to that degree, working with the Children's Trust and also West Northants Council, we've got a child exploitation unit which is opening imminently to work with those young people to help them. Generally, these children are the vulnerable children in our society, and they are likely to be more involved with serious crime in the future. You know, I watch the news every day, and they seem to be getting younger and younger. And very much like early help, we need to be working with them at an early stage, so capture them at an early age so they don't get involved with gangs and groups. And youth clubs as well, you'll be pleased to know that there's a range of youth clubs that are opening up. I know in my neighbouring town of Burton Latimer, we've got one that's opening up next week, I believe it is, which is working with that. But we mustn't forget as well all those young voluntary organisations like the Scouting Uniformed organisations, the Church Uniform organisations that do amazing jobs with young people, week in, week out. And again, volunteers they are that do this, and invaluable support from members of our society. But absolutely, we need to do more to work with the young people. We are doing it, and we need to continue to do it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Brackenbury.
Thank you, Chair. And again, I welcome the report. I welcome the hard work that the Police and Fire Commissioner and his team and everybody else who's associated has put in getting this interesting report put together. It shines a sort of rather unpleasant light, doesn't it? I'm looking at the regional split across Northamptonshire, and there is no part of Northamptonshire that does not have substantial outbreaks of serious violence offences. There's more than, the lowest figure in South Northamptonshire is more than 1,000 of those offences. In our own area, there's 1,600 plus in East Northamptonshire, 2,500 in Corby, 2,800 in Kettering, and nearly 3,000 in Wellingborough. There is no part of North Northamptonshire that is not seriously impacted by serious violence offences. So I welcome all the comments that have been made on this paper. I welcome the general strategic approach to try to work in a multi-agency way to bring down and address the causes and, of course, the actual crimes themselves, so as to get these figures down as far as possible. So it's a great report, and thank you for everybody who's been involved in putting it together.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. Councillor Rowley, did you just want to sum up and move the report, and I'll find you a seconder?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you for everyone's comments. The police can't fix this alone. It's got to be a multi-agency strategy, which this has thankfully brought through. I'd like to thank Jane and Kerry and their teams for doing an excellent job on representing North Northants on the strategy, and therefore I propose the recommendations as point 3.1, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rowley. So the recommendations have been proposed by Councillor Rowley. Councillor Brackenbury, you indicating to second. Thank you very much. So the recommendations are set out on page 166 to 167 of the agenda pack. They've been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we now move on to item 9, Levelling Up Fund Cultural Allocation for North Northamptonshire. And I'd like to invite Councillor Lynn Buckingham to address the meeting.
Thank you very much. And again, I welcome the report. I welcome the investment of money. And I know it's going to be hard to decide what comes forward for funding. I particularly like the, on page 212, 4.11, the Council proposes that the investment plan will also include a grant scheme to support smaller capital projects, i.e. less than the £500,000 that is in the main part, because that will help some of those smaller organisations grow. The only thing that it doesn't think about at this stage is sustainability. So a lot of these are capital projects that are coming forward, but obviously there is an ongoing cost, that sustainability and how we will manage that. Point of clarification, please. On page 210 in the recommendation B, delegate authority to the leader of the council to establish and agree membership of the councillor and officer panel. The panel to include leaders of the recognised political groups of the council and 2 local heritage and culture sector representatives. But within the heads of terms as Appendix A, for the panel, there's no mention of the political group leaders. And I wonder if that's it's just been missed out, or whether it's, just a little bit of clarification on that. But I really welcome this report and the investment that it will bring. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckingham. And you are right, the heads of terms don't include that in there currently, but that will be addressed, and it's important to note the heads of terms will be updated to reflect that, and that's something I was going to pick up in my introductory speech, but well spotted. So look, this is great news, isn't it, for Northamptonshire and our local residents, that the government has prioritised us in this area for a levelling up investment that has been allocated to us for £5 million worth of capital funding to support local cultural projects as part of the spring budget. This funding allocation is a great opportunity for the council to develop cultural projects that will benefit the people and the economy of Northamptonshire. To receive this funding, the council must submit an investment plan that outlines the proposed projects. The council is responsible for the funding and must ensure that the projects are of good value and they're feasible, and they have broad stakeholder support, including from local MPs. This will reassure the government that the projects are deliverable and are a local priority. So already over 50 organisations have been invited to submit proposals for consideration, and the deadline for applications is Monday, the 22nd of April, 8 a.m. The final investment plan must be submitted to the government by the 10th of May 2024. The council aims to ensure that the selected projects will significantly impact the community and the benefits will be felt widely. To ensure a fair and transparent decision-making process, a panel of executive members and officers, including the leaders of the recognised political groups and 2 local heritage and cultural sector representatives, have been delegated powers to shortlist projects for inclusion into the investment plan. This panel will consider the proposals and make well-informed decisions based on experience and expertise. It is important to note that the heads of terms will be updated to reflect the inclusion of the leaders on the recognised political groups of the council. The panel is only likely to meet twice, and no substitute for named panel members will be allowed to ensure the decision-making process is fair and transparent. In conclusion, the council is committed to selecting cultural projects that will significantly impact the local community and promote Northamptonshire's rich cultural heritage. The recommendations are set out at page 3.1 of the reports in front of you. So I would like to ask any members now if they have any comments in relation to this report. Councillor Howe.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this report and welcome any funding that can go into our sort of cultural, tourism and heritage sector. I'm delighted that we've managed to clarify that we're able to put a pot aside of £500,000 for smaller projects. It was one of the things that my cultural heritage and tourism team and myself were pushing for, actually, because we're very aware of the smaller organisations out there that need help, not just the big projects. You know, there are a lot of fantastic organisations that do great work throughout the whole of Northamptonshire, providing all sorts of cultural heritage projects and talks and walks and all those things that enrich our residents' lives. And so I really welcome this funding and look forward to the fantastic projects coming forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Howe. Councillor Brackenbury.
Oh, yes, thank you, Chair. Again, in concert with colleagues, I welcome the report. I welcome the £5 million investment. And, I think it's really brilliant to have that investment for culture and cultural activities in Northampton. It really is substantial funding. It will make a substantial difference. I welcome also the emphasis that this is receiving from yourself, leader. The leader of the council, and a wide panel of expertise. We're not just doing it in-house, so to speak. We're reaching beyond that, and I welcome the inclusion of members from the opposition groups as well. We don't have very much time. The bids have to be in. The investment plan has to be submitted by the 10th of May, and by my watch, it's the 18th of April now. So we don't have very much time. So we will have, we've got to make sure that bids are submitted and that they're analysed and that the investment plan is put together in fairly short order. So that's going to be very interesting. We will need the support of key local stakeholders and the local members of Parliament. And so we're welcoming the meetings of the panel, and I'm welcoming the engagement with the wider stakeholders and members of Parliament, and I'm absolutely looking forward to a comprehensive and detailed investment plan being submitted to government by 10th of May. It should be very good news.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackery. Councillor Pentland.
Thank you, Chair, and I think we're all pretty much of the same opinion that this is a really welcome investment from the government in our local area. Short timescales, but I've no doubt that people are already working really hard on the projects for this, and what we will come up with will enhance the offering locally, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this progresses over the coming weeks, months and years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pentland. And yes, Ian A. Church, the officer who's in charge of moving this forward, is working very, very hard. As you can imagine, the timescales on this are very, very tight. But we are committed to getting this £5 million spent, and there's already seen some very, very exciting projects coming forward from some very inspirational individuals, especially two ladies from Kettering that spring to mind. I'm not going to name them and embarrass them, but you know, they're absolutely inspirational in what they're trying to achieve, and I really hope that we can help with that endeavour. I thank you for all the members and their input on this. So I'm happy to move this report. Can I find someone that would like to second it? Councillor Howell, thank you very much. The recommendations are set out on page 210 of the agenda pack. So they've been moved and seconded by myself and the Deputy Leader. Can I have a show of hands of those in favour, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So at this time, I think it might be worth just having a quick 10-minute comfort break, and we will continue after that. Thank you. Good morning again, and thank you, and I hope you enjoyed your comfort breaks. So we carry on the meeting. Agenda item 10, Knights Farm Overage Legal Agreement. I would like to invite Councillor Binley to introduce the report, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. This report is requesting authorisation for the variation of the long stop date on the deed of variation, which was originally approved by Executive on the 20th of April 2023. Under that deed of variation, it is due to expire at the end of April 2024. It is requested that the long stop date be amended to the 30th of April 2025 at the request of the landowners. This is the only proposed change to the deed of variation. Knights Farm was originally sold by Northamptonshire County Council in 1998. At that time, part of the sale, an overage provision was placed upon the sale for a period of 40 years to benefit from any future development. In April 2018, Northamptonshire County Council entered into a deed of variation with the landowner. NNC are the beneficiary in the overage as this was passed on from NCC. The overage is due to the site changing to a more valuable use, i.e. residential. The site is part of the Rushden East Sustainable Urban Extension, which includes houses, a percentage of which are affordable homes, offices, schools, a park, community facilities, and cemetery land. The request for the extension has come about due to planning matters taking longer than the developer anticipated, so the extension is to accommodate the planning process. This deed of variation of the overage provision should result in a capital receipt to the council. I feel it must be noted that should matters not be concluded before the new long stop date, then we would have to give serious consideration as to whether extending again would be in the best interests of the council and its residents. Chair, therefore, I would like to move the recommendations set out in section 3.1a for the reasons set out in 3.2.
Thank you very much, Councillor Binley. Members, do you have any comments in relation to this report? Councillor Brackenbury.
Thank you, Chair. And as Councillor Binley observes, this is part of the Rushden Sustainable Urban Extension, and extending the overage will assist materially in delivering part of this development, which is on the Knights Farm site, and will support the planning process. So I very much support this.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. Councillor Mercer.
Thank you. I very much support this as well. We don't want anything to interfere with the delivery of this sustainable urban extension, which is very much wanted in order to enhance our land supply. So I think this is a very eminent solution.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mercer. Can't see any other hands up. So, Councillor Binley, I know you've moved the report. Did you want to just wrap up, or should we go find you a seconder? No problems. Would someone like to second that? I think Councillor Howe. Thank you very much. So the recommendations are set out on page 220 of the agenda pack. They've been moved and seconded. Could I have a show of hands in favour, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we move on to item 11, Department for Transport Funding Allocation, and I'd like to invite Councillor Emily Feredovich to join the meeting, and you have a maximum of 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, and thank you also for this report. It's really good. It's really good to see some funding coming through for our buses or bus services. Obviously, even though if it's necessarily just certain specific ones, I just wanted to make a couple of notes really. So I did note that there is an allocation of over £35,000 for communicating sort of the marketing of the improvements to the services. I just want us to possibly be mindful of how we're doing this. Firstly, in the case of, I actually don't know, I'd like to see more of a breakdown of that and understand why it's so quite costly, because I presume that these promotions will be targeting the areas where the subsidies are actually going to be hitting, which is limited. So I think that's sort of one thing, and making sure that if we're promoting general improvements to bus services, we kind of be a little bit mindful of the fact that people are quite frustrated with our bus services at the moment. They're not covering a lot of things of what people are wanting. So whilst these are good improvements to see, I think we just need to be mindful of the bigger picture, especially depending on how far out that marketing is sort of going. We also, in 5.16, there's mentions of future allocations, and I wanted to sort of just come in and make some notes at that point, because I'm mindful of this is improvements in a couple of key areas, but that I wanted to share some information from when I did some consultation work on the previous bus strategy. There was a lot that came out that I think that we need to be tackling going forward, and I just want to make sure that members and officers are aware of that. So generally people are sort of saying that buses are late, they don't come, connecting times are sometimes not helpful, so even if the buses are quite regular in certain areas, they'll try and get, for instance, to the Kettering Horse Market area, they'll be getting connecting service, and where they need to go will be leaving about 7 minutes before. So actually understanding where people need to go and making sure that the services are working for people, I think that's really important, that we need to start looking at that. Community transport is something that we're obviously starting to fund, which is really exciting, and I think that is something that people have been asking for, something that's a little bit more flexible, and I hope to see that sort of flourish. Also, I would just say, as a ward councillor, from me starting to speak to people before I was even a councillor, people were saying that they moved to the area because the bus services were coming every 20 minutes. Then it went to every half an hour, and then it went to every hour. And now sometimes it's every hour at the start of the day and the end of the day, and it's sometimes not suiting people. So in terms of the frequency, and I know we are upping the frequency in a couple of areas here, but that's not across the whole area. And I think that is just something that we need to be mindful of. That is something that people are finding difficult, I think. I did also wanted to raise something that came up when I did some of that consultation work, which is that people were asked, or a couple of people mentioned that on the ground, when they're at bus stations, etc., there are sometimes errors that come up. For instance, the boards don't work.
Your 3 minutes is up, I'm afraid.
Well, thank you very much. No, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Councillor Hakewell to address the meeting. Councillor Hakewell, you have a maximum of 3 minutes.
Thank you, Leader. Appendix A, 17A to 19, the bus service Desborough Eyes Lodge, improvement of frequency to the 3 buses an hour, includes increasing or to serve Fallow Road. And Fallow Road is Rothwell North, which is the so-called strategic link road. I'm not particularly sure how we came to that conclusion, given that in Rothwell, both east and west of the A6, former A6, services were removed from places like Moorfield and Kipton, which would be much more viable than Fallow Road, which is under construction. So I'm not particularly sure what opportunities there are to, as happened with Wellingborough Berrymore in the scrutiny committee, to bring forward those ideas to improve its central town. I'm not also sure how ward members are communicated with on these particular issues, because frankly I missed it, if indeed it was there. So 5.15, local transport funding, 149 million, once the DFT announced in 5.16. When do we expect the government to announce these allocations? What reassurance can the executive give that these significant sums for investment will actually be delivered on the ground, literally, given the significant slippage in the council's capital programme in every one of the 3 years since the council was created in 2021? 742, any overspends or emerging pressures are identified. What mitigations have been put in place during this financial year for overspends in the programme? In 7.4.5, there states there is a risk, as explained elsewhere, that if funding levels are not sustained, bus services introduced in the coming years will have to be removed again. This could result in communities losing bus services, as we just heard from Councillor Fedorovic, upon which some residents have become reliant and causing reputational damage for the authority from removing services only recently introduced. The whole key of a bus service and people's life decisions is sustainability of that service. And when you look at the bus services amounts in the tables, there's a massive increase and then it drops back. So what reassurances also does the executive have that bus operators have the capacity to deliver the increased bus services being promised, to actually do it rather than talk about it? The award allocated in 7.4.6, local transport funding period 25-6.
Councillor Hakewell, that's your time, that's your
31-32.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I made a good point there, so thank you.
Councillor Lynn Buckingham, I'd like to invite you to join the meeting for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I will try to be quick. Again, I welcome any investment into the bus network. However, you know, there are areas where, for example, we were told at an EAP, one of the biggest bus routes between Corby and Kettering was the hospital bus, which is now not running sufficiently, and that bus was packed full almost every day, every time I went on it. That service was explained that it probably would come back into the only thing that I can see on there is Weldon Airfield to Kettering via the hospital. Don't even know where Weldon Airfield is, or where it is on the route. And a lot of these routes, again, you know, why were these routes chosen? As an example, Corby Old Village, a couple of years ago, they wanted to renew the bridge over the railway. So the X4 bus, which was an hourly bus, came through the village, picked up, and all the residents could use that bus. Because the bridge took 7 months, they had to reroute the bus. The bus doesn't pick anybody up on the new route, but it's left the old village without a viable bus service. I mean, I used to use that on a daily basis to come into Corby, and it always picked up at least 7 or 8 people in the old village each time the bus came through. So they've lost their bus. As I say, the Kettering hospital bus, now you have to use 2 buses to get to the hospital, and it's so well used. Just wondering why the decisions that you've made, and I know that we've all got areas in our area that could benefit by more buses or frequent buses or whatever. Just think there's a trick being missed here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckingham. Hear really loud what a lot of you are saying on the bus stuff, and I just wanted to put on the radar. I'm going to ask the Deputy Chief Executive in a minute to come in on this, but we met with a world-class operation, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, Via, they're called, and they use technology to do that last mile type approach to transportation, public transportation, and they enjoy a really good reputation around the world. So there's similar, if you've booked a train with multiple stops and times, their system combines in and tells you, well, you need to be at this bus stop at this time, it will get you to this bus stop in time for the next bus, and so on. And it links in with all of the operators, well, within the United Kingdom, but more interesting to us, Northamptonshire. So it will provide a potential solution to some of the points that have been raised by Councillor Feredovic, yourself, which is really, really useful. So, Mr. Kander, I might bring you in at this point just to give a bit more of an in-depth overview of what the meeting entailed and so on.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. So just briefly, so we have been talking to operators, particularly around the demand responsive transport offer, which I know is of particular interest in the more rural communities of Northamptonshire. And as the Leader has said, we are exploring that offer with a range of operators, and we were able to be showcased what Via do, and essentially they have a City Mapper is the app, and it enables you, instead of just going onto the train line, for example, and booking your train tickets, it's an all-in-one app that enables you, if you need to get from A to B, it will work out how much walking is needed if indeed you want to walk, where there may be electric scooters, electric bikes, where there may be car clubs, as well as the normal modes of transport such as buses, and it will calculate that and work out how much it will cost as well. So it's an all-in-one app, but they also come in and provide that demand responsive transport offer as well. And we know we've got some local operators as well, so it's important that when we do eventually commission the work, that we tender that accordingly so that it meets those local demands, as I've said. But it's really positive that we've got a worldwide organisation that operates across Europe, across Australasia, as well as in the UK, and that is very keen to provide that offer. But clearly we will do that under the normal competitive basis that you would expect us to do as a local authority. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'd like to invite Councillor Matt Binley to introduce the report, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for those additional comments. That's one of the things that I was also going to mention. I think just to pick up some of the points, I mean, of course, Councillor Fedorovich, you mentioned about marketing. Of course, these are the things that we are looking at. We are looking at apps. We are also looking at increased and improved technology with things such as the real-time boards. One of the challenges that I have set to offices is about moving ahead with things like apps, because I have explained that, you know, our users very much, as you have just said, about buses being late, buses not turning up at all, that the industry and we see here in Northamptonshire is there's a bit of a lag in that technology, and we want them to come forward on this journey whereby that real-time information is displayed like you get with the train network. So that is what we are looking at. Late buses, yes, as I've already mentioned, that is an issue, but that is also why we are working with the bus service operators to improve that. And we have seen significant improvements in that area with regards to reliability. But we are also working with them to put in place a charter, which again covers aspects such as that. I know that you mentioned also the reductions in service. Well, as I previously mentioned when covering off the bus service improvement plans, when we've had the additional funding from government, yes, we have seen a reduction in some of the frequencies in services. We have not lost any services during COVID. We have, you know, a bus service operator who has operated very, very well during COVID and has kept those services going. However, we have seen reductions in the frequencies. That is what this is all about. This funding from central government is to support the recovery, or has been intended to support the recovery from COVID. We have not yet seen bus patronage return to pre-COVID levels. So that is what this is here to support, and hence why we are trying to put forward together a well-formulated plan to help with that. But we're also working with bus service operators to think outside of the box. So, for example, we have started getting in contact with local employers in the area so that we can find out about shift start times to see whether there is feasibility to be looking at, either putting on additional services or rerouting services so that they go into the kind of employment areas for that demand-led service. Councillor Hakewell, picking up on some of the points that you've made, of course, routes have to be financially viable. They have to be sustainable. As you say, what guarantees have we got about these routes not being pulled later on? That is why officers have worked tirelessly behind the scenes to link this funding in wherever possible with Section 106 funding. They are also working again behind the scenes with officers from other teams such as the Home to School Transport team to link that in to help support our Home to School Transport, but also to help the financial viability of that route or additional services becoming commercially viable as soon as possible. With regards to the announcement on funding, because I know you picked up on the 149 million, we are in a pre-election period. We have had communication from the Department for Transport. Our last communication with them was on Friday, where they announced that they would be announcing the funding and how that will be broken down as soon as possible, but that will only be after the pre-election period for the obvious legal reasons. I know, of course, you also asked for reassurances with regards to about the money being spent. Well, of course, I'm pleased to announce that, and I think everybody should be aware, I know it's even been in the media, that with regards to the 1.069 million that we received from the government for the last financial year and for this financial year, we have already published a works plan. We have a works plan on our website. And officers are already working on having a works programme put together for the use of this additional 149 million pounds. Of course, there is a risk, and that is in this report, with regards to the buses, that funding could be cut. We do not know what will happen in the future financial years because, of course, as we know, with regards to governments, they can change and they can also change their strategies and policies. So that's also, and I do pick this up in my report, that is also why officers have taken a very prudent action of reaching out to the Department for Transport with regards to the bus service improvement plan, and requesting that some of that funding be defaulted to a future financial year to help mitigate that wherever possible. Councillor Buckingham, just on the Weldon development, the airport bit, that is at the Weldon development. Of course, it's where we've just had a new secondary school open. And the reason you ask, well, why was that selected? It goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's about that route potentially becoming commercially viable. And of course, in that area, we have Section 106 money to help support that. That is why that route was chosen. So officers have, like I said, worked long and hard on this to look at everything that can be done with regards to new routes, existing routes, and what can become financially viable and what support is there, such as Section 106 money, etc. So on that note, Chair, I'm now going to go on to present the rest of the report. So this is to note the Department for Transport grants received for bus service improvements and for road safety improvements along a prescribed stretch of the A6, and to subsequently seek approval to spend these amounts. It is to also note NNC's allocation of the Local Transport Fund and for the development of plans for a spending programme. I really would like to thank officers for putting this report together, as it does contain a great deal of information, And I'm going to attempt to summarise as best as I possibly can because there is an awful lot of information contained within there. So significant additional information is contained within the report. I'm going to cover each item separately because, of course, officers have put everything into one. I shall start with the bus service improvement plan. So we have been allocated an additional £2.45 million of bus service improvement plan phase 3 funding. This was announced off the back of the cancellation of HS2, the northern phase. This is in addition to our allocation of the phase 2 funding, which was £569 million, £412 for both financial years for 23-24 and 24-25. That was approved by Executive back in September of 2023. So as this is a significant increase in the short-term funding and with future years funding and uncertainty, officers have taken that prudent step that I mentioned earlier of proposing to carry forward £872,197 of revenue funding and convert £128,000 into capital funding for the 25-26 financial year. The funding rules do allow for such a request, and we are now waiting to hear back from the Department for Transport. As a result of this funding, officers have been able to put together a substantial plan of bus service improvements, which would be phased in over the coming months. These are listed in Appendix A. These schemes tie in with Section 106 funding, and where possible, home to school transport will complement them, with everything working towards making additional frequencies or new routes commercially viable to grow long-term patronage, revenues, maintain service levels, to maintain social and economic connectivity for our community. Onto the Safer Roads funding. We've been awarded £2.2 million of Safer Roads funding. In 2023, the government invited bids from selected councils to submit bids for road safety improvements along road sections with high levels of road risk. The roads at risk were identified by the Road Safety Foundation. They were selected based on annual crash risk mapping, location and potential benefit to cost ratio. We were invited to submit a bid for the A6 from the junction with the A14 stretching down to the junction with the A45 at Chowes Mill. A package of interventions was developed by officers as part of the bid. This involves selecting from a list of possible interventions provided as part of the bidding process. Modelling has suggested that the interventions will reduce the annual fatalities and serious injuries rate from 5.35 to 3.7. Then on to the local transport fund. So we've been allocated £149,208,000 from the financial years 2025 to 2032. Full details of how this funding will be divided over the years and requirements of the scheme are yet to be published, and this will be done shortly after the pre-election period. This funding is in addition, as I said earlier, to the £1.069 million worth of funding received from the government for the 23-24 financial year and the 24-25 financial year. I am certain that there will be similar requirements to publish the intended schemes for utilisation of the funding. And we have, as I said earlier, we have already published information on the schemes for utilising that previously announced funding. Plus, we have also published the plans for the additional capital funding that this council has invested as part of our budget setting process. All of the information has been published on our website, and this is also where we would publish any of the additional planned schemes to use the £149 million. These schemes are selected using the asset prioritisation matrix, which has data fed into it from road inspections, volume of road faults reported, road type, and so on. There will also be future schemes based on current priorities in the list of identified schemes. This will be in accordance with the Northamptonshire Asset Management Plan and the Network Management Plan. I think also, Chair, and this is something that you may pick up on, I think it's also prudent to mention the thanks that we've had from Oundle Town Council with regards to the work put in, and I quote, they've asked for their thanks to be, wholehearted thanks to be passed on to Danny and the bus team and to the executive on the assumptions that the plans get passed today. So, of course, they're very supportive of the work that has been done. And I would also like to note my personal thanks to the government for this significant investment in road safety, in improving our roads, and also in the bus service. It is a significant investment, a huge investment on top of the significant investment that this council has committed to our roads. And I think we absolutely should recognise that. So with that, Chair, I therefore would like to move the recommendation set out in 3.1A to D, and that's for the reasons set out in 3.2 of the report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Binley, and thank you for that in-depth breakdown of the report. And I guess, yes, I do welcome massively this investment by the government into the infrastructure, not just here in Northamptonshire, but around the country. I think it's an absolutely fantastic amount of money that this country is going to get to improve various things up and down. And obviously, if there was a change of government at any point, an incoming government, we hope to get their approval on this as well, and not for that money to be taken back. But and I think that's probably why we're taking quite a prudent approach at the moment, because we don't know where we're going with that at the moment. There is one part that I just wanted to pick up with you, Councillor Binley, the bus service improvement plan phase 2 fund. I think you were a little over generous in your figures. You stated we had 169 million. That would be very nice, but in fact it's 169,000, and I just want to clear that up as for clarity of the record. But thank you very much for your report. Members, do you have anything to say in relation to this? Councillor Mercer.
Thank you. Well, so obviously, really welcome all the investment. I'm particularly keen that the changes get done to the A6 between Burton Latimer and Jansbury Roundabout. So I've got a dangerous road, and any improvements that can be made to it be very welcome. And of course, all the other investment as well, particularly in the bus services, and being able to utilise that in relation to the Section 106, which makes it very sustainable as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mercer. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you. Yeah, I too welcome this report, particularly the bus services, and I'm pleased that it's acknowledged about buses to schools and the X4, which runs from Northampton to Peterborough, that goes through many rural locations, including Oundle, where a lot of school children use it to attend Prince William School in Oundle, are going to be improved. And that's fantastic, and because a lot of complaints in your mailbox will be about cars parked outside schools, about traffic congestion, etc., etc. So the more we can get children onto buses, the better. So I welcome this.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pentland.
Thank you, Chair. It's a very welcome round of funding for our local area again, which seems to be a bit of a theme today, and that is really good news. I think colleagues have picked up on the salient points that need to be kept in focus when we're allocating and delivering on this, particularly around the bus services and making sure that they cater for our rural communities as well as our more urban communities, and the information you gave around the demand responsive options there is encouraging. I hope that if we get this right and get the funding into the right places, that bus patronage will increase, because if you make the service usable and what people need and want, then hopefully they will use those bus services, and that creates the sustainability that we need with them. So I look forward to seeing this move forward over the coming months and so on. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Councillor Penn. And Councillor Brackenbury.
Thank you, Chair. And again, with colleagues, I very much welcome the funding. I very much welcome the careful work that has gone in to the bus service improvement plan. And again, I think the officers who've worked tirelessly, as Councillor Binley observes, on this should be commended. I naturally, I don't want to repeat what everybody else has said, but I think it's worth pointing out that the local transport funding of £149 million, which is a decent sum, will be particularly welcome. And I'm looking forward to getting the guidance from government as to how that can be allocated after the election period's over. So that, again, is going to be serious funding. It's going to make a substantial difference to local transport here in North Northamptonshire. So it's very much to be welcomed.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. And more important, Executive, as you may have missed, that Councillor Maxwell's not here today, and I know she's an absolute champion of bus services, and she will be absolutely delighted, and I know she's read the report because she has messaged me, but she's actually hot on the campaign trail today, as you're probably all aware, but it's an absolute fantastic addition for the area. So, Councillor Binley, back to you to wrap up, and I will find you a seconder once you've moved the report.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for making that correction. I suppose it's just a good job I'm not the finance portfolio holder. I thank all of those welcome comments. Of course, yes, you're all absolutely right. This is really, really welcome. And as I've said already, officers are working very, very hard behind the scenes to make sure that this funding is spent to basically the absolute maximum benefit to the residents of North Northamptonshire. With that, Chair, as I've said, I've already moved and fully support this.
Thank you very much, Councillor Binley. Anyone would like to second this report? Councillor Edwards, thank you very much. So that's been moved and seconded. The recommendations are on page 260 of your agenda pack. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we move on to item 12, Annual Inflationary Uplift, Adult Social Care and Support 24-25. I'd like to invite Councillor Mercer to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. We're proposing an uplift in fees paid to our contracted adult social care providers for 24-25, and this is our annual inflationary uplift. We have a duty under the Care Act 2014 to ensure a sustainable market of care in our area. The uplift takes into account the government's proposed 9.8% increase in the national living wage to £11.44 from the 1st of April 2024. The Council prefers to incentivise providers to join its frameworks rather than use spot providers. The frameworks allow the Council to control the cost of care and the quality of care delivered. The recommendations strike a balance of supporting providers to recruit and retain staff within a finite funding envelope. Spot provision is more costly. It can cost up to 20 to 40% more. One of the key challenges and risks for providers are recruitment and retention of staff, and our annual uplifts allow our contracted providers to offer competitive rates of pay and to make social care an attractive career proposition. The proposal is for targeted uplifts as described in Table 1 of 3.1. The uplifts for residential, dementia and nursing care, for instance, allow for the national living wage plus a percentage for other inflationary pressures. The cost outlined in this table is accounted for in the budget under the headings Contract Inflation, 4.372 million, and Demographic Growth, 19.836 million. An element of this demographic growth is made up of the Market Sustainability and Improvement Fund of 4.444 million, of which 958k will be utilised for uplifts over and above the national living wage requirements. This grant was announced in the Autumn Statement of November 2022, and its primary purpose is to build capacity and improve market sustainability. This fund must be used to increase fees to adult social care to sustain the market and reduce adult social care waiting times. So, Chairman, the reasons for recommendations are given at 3.2. The Executive is asked to approve these proposals to come into effect from the 1st of April 2024 as per Table 1 on page 277.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mercer. Members, anything to say in relation to this report? No? Okay. So, Councillor Mercer has moved the report. Can I look for someone to second that report, please? Councillor Binley, thank you very much. So the recommendations are set out on page 276 and 277 of the agenda pack. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. So move on to item 13, commissioning for a Good Life Framework Agreement for individuals with a learning disability. And I'd like to, again, Councillor Mercer, if you could introduce the report, please.
Thank you very much. This report seeks approval to extend the commissioning for a Good Life framework for adults with learning disability for a further 5 years. The contract is due to expire on the 9th of January 2025. The extension was written into the original contract, which dates back to Northants County Council. Due to the time lag, the change of council and the contract sum, it was considered that this needed to be brought to the executive. The intention is to recommission during this extension period, and where appropriate, single contracts could be procured. A review was carried out, and based on this, it's recommended that the extension facility is utilised. You'll see there may be a possibility to develop more cost-effective models whilst recommissioning services. The contract value is £36.3 million per year, which is factored into the MTFP. The commissioning will take account of the emerging housing strategy and the adult social care strategy. It's in the best interests of vulnerable people who have a learning disability. Alternative options, as at 3.5, were considered, but it was considered better to allow for the extension but recommission individual services during the 5 years. This will allow procurement to be done in a staged way and will enable market entrants to be invited to tender as appropriate. The contract is made up of 8 offers: residential living, supported accommodation, short breaks, support at home, living and learning, forensic support and crisis support. And the aim is to support people to have healthy, meaningful, ordinary lives. As of September 2023, there were 122 providers. Currently, we commission support for 917 people with learning disability. 87.7% are between 18 and 64, and 12.3% are over 65. There will be a continuity of service for individuals in receipt of support. As part of the review, consultation was carried out with the individuals, their families and carers, plus the providers and other professionals. Appendix A gives background information on what the aims of the care are, i.e. that the well-being of individuals is at the centre of any decisions. It also sets out the legislative framework and explains the demographics and where the majority of people live who require support. For instance, 40% of individuals live in Kettering, which is twice the number of those in Corby and 4 times that of East Northants. Consultation responses are included, plus an explanation of the different types of care and their respective costs, plus the overall cost per lot and the number of packages in that category. The Executive is asked to agree to the extension of the Learning Disabilities Framework. The recommendations are at 3.1 on page 292 and include delegations to myself in conjunction with the Director of Adults Health Partnerships and Housing to take decisions in relation to call-offs and mini competitions, plus any other decisions in relation to recommissioning. And the reasons for these recommendations are at 3.2.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mercer. And it's good to see that obviously if we extend this contract, it means the Council will continue to meet its statutory duties under the Care Act 2014 and it will build upon outcome-based commissioning and further enhance the quality of the service and outcomes for individuals in the future, which is obviously important and something that we need to be doing with all of our services. Members, do you have anything to say in relation to this paper? No? Okie dokie. So that has been moved by Councillor Mercer. Would someone like to second that report? Councillor Rowley, thank you very much. The recommendations are set out on page 292 of the agenda pack. They've been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. So we move on to item 14, corporate fuel card policy and procurement of a fuel card provider. Councillor Binley, would you like to introduce the report, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. This report is to seek approval for the adoption of a corporate fuel card policy and to procure a single new fuel card provider if the Council's general purchase card, also referred to as the GPC, is not a suitable alternative to this. We currently have 2 sites where vehicles can refuel. These sites are not appropriate for all vehicles that are neither based at these sites nor operate from them. We also need a fuel card or some viable alternative at each refuelling site as a redundant backup. Officers are currently exploring if the Council's GPC can be used in a way that would be a feasible alternative to procuring a corporate fuel card. We're currently operating with legacy contracts and we now need to consolidate these. We currently have two main fuel card providers and these legacy agreements require procurement to comply with the contract procedure rules. If the GPC is not a suitable alternative, then the preferred option is to procure a fuel card provider using an established framework. This offers a number of benefits as listed in 5.4 of the report. There is a provision for expenditure in the fleet service revenue budget. A 3-year fuel card contract value is approximately £960,000. It was a recommendation of the Council's It was a recommendation of the Council's internal auditor that a fuel card policy be implemented. They have also been consulted on the draft policy. The draft fuel card policy is listed at Appendix A. The policy, I think, is very self-explanatory. And holders of the fuel cards would be required to read the policy and sign an agreement. The policy makes it very clear what is proper and what is misuse of fuel cards. It also covers aspects such as mapping out the responsibilities of various people with regards to the policy. Therefore, Chair, I'd like to move the recommendations made out in section 3.1A to C for the reasons set out in 3.2 of the report.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bidney. Members, do you have any comments in relation to the procurement of a fuel card? No? Okay, so the recommendations are on page 374. They've been moved by Councillor Bidney. Could someone second those? Councillor Howes, thank you very much. He's seconded that report. So as I say, the recommendations are on 374 of the agenda pack. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we now move on to item 15, capital programme update. And I'd like to invite Councillor Hakewell to address the meeting, please. Councillor Hakewell, you have a maximum of 3 minutes.
Councillor Hakewell, you've turned the mic off.
Sorry, lost some seconds. Given the continuous slippage in the Council's capital programme, what reassurance can the Executive give that this investment in cultural activity will be delivered on budget and on time? What are the risks associated with not being able to create and deliver the investment plan by the government's deadline of the 10th of May, which we've already heard about? I hope also that the Executive will join the all-party LGA lobbying to stop this drip bidding culture of governments of any flavour, where millions are spent on bidding to get the money in, and as we see in this, in 5.7, provisionally awarded. Consideration by scrutiny. The schemes recommended in this report not being considered by scrutiny. Back in the earlier report, and this talks about scrutiny, I know, Lead, you're very conscious of scrutiny, due to the need to submit the investment by 10th May, not sufficient time. Consideration by scrutiny, not sufficient time. What does worry me is that the scrutiny process in the Council is crucial, and I've always followed by scrutiny being crucial. And we're actually making decisions on significant sums of money in too short a timescale. So scrutiny has effectively been bypassed. It does make me feel that there is an agenda somewhere in pushing these funds out in a way that's not really able to be dealt with by local government who are receiving them. And that's a real shame, because it doesn't give best value to taxpayers if these things are done in a hurry and without good due diligence. Thank you.
Thank Thank you very much, Councillor Hakewell. And on that, I would like to invite Councillor Lynn Buckingham to address the meeting.
Thank you very much, and I will make mine very swift because I agree with what Councillor Hakewell said about the shortness of time in bringing in a lot of the grants and things. It seems that government are throttling local authorities and then putting out a sweetener. You know, you can have some money under our terms rather than give it to the council to manage in the way that it should do that. And that is a real shame. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckingham. I would now like to invite Councillor Bunday to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. In response to our two speakers, we've got a situation where the government dictates timelines that is not within our gift to debate. All we've got to do is get on and put in the applications so that we get the money. Because, yes, the risk is that if we don't put in the applications by the 10th of May, we won't get the money. It's as simple as that. And I'm sure Councillor Hakewell will use his influence on the LGA, because he continually tells us that the LGA has his ear to actually make those changes. But as far as timelines goes and timely grants, I think it's been a problem of many governments going back, not just this present government, that they don't give you very much time. And that's just a fact of life, and that is really where we are, I'm afraid. And I cannot see that changing in the foreseeable future, whichever government is in Westminster. Moving on to the report, Chair, there are 4 items to be approved for changes in the capital programme. Replacement of electronic locking systems for the Corby East Midlands International Pool. Upper Nene Valley gravel pit special protection area, and that's over 2 years. And then 2 items that have actually come up on previous reports this morning. The Safer Roads Fund, which was referred to by Councillor Binley at item 11, and then the Levelling Up Fund, which was presented by yourself at item 9. And with that, I'm happy to recommend the propose the recommendation at paragraph 3.1.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bunday. I just wanted to add a little bit in there about some of the comments that were made by members about scrutiny and so on. Scrutiny is vital to this organisation, and you know, it's a really good sounding board for this executive to ensure that what we're doing is looked at and overseen by individuals that you know, can look at it from a different perspective. So I just want to make that very clear, that scrutiny is completely welcomed here. Ideally, we would have more time to submit the £5 million cultural bid stuff, but unfortunately we don't. So as part of that process, you know, I've ensured that the recognised political group leaders will be part of that decision-making process, along with subject experts in cultural type things. So, you know, I think we're doing everything we can here as an executive in regards to that £5 million funding pot that's come from government, that very welcomed £5 million funding pot. And I think what we need to do is just get on with it as quickly as possible and put some trust into the group leaders and the officers and the local experts that will guide us through this. Any other questions from quotes from members? Councillor Brackenbury?
Thank you, Leader. I mean, I was going to say nearly all that you've just said, so I won't waste time, but just to reiterate that, yes, as is common, we've got very little time to respond to an invitation from government to accept some funding. And I know that we've been putting a lot of energy, a lot of hard work into making sure that we have a representative panel that can make these decisions quickly and at pace, and an excellent team of officers to implement them, so that we do in fact get our mission forward by the 10th of May in good order. So, you know, it's not an uncommon thing, and as it's been pointed out, it happens with governments of whichever stripe for many, many years.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. Any other comments from members? Councillor Howell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I welcome this funding going into the capital programme. The Corby and International, East Midlands International Pool, this vayment of £66,000 to enable us to replace some of the electronic locking system and locker housing is general repairs realistically. I mean, when you're working with an environment that's full of chlorine, you constantly have maintenance issues. I'm well aware of this in my former life. So it's good to see that this system will enable us to get this system back up and running and allow our members of the Corby Pool to be able to access these lockers and also to be able to get in and out of the premises via the turnstiles and things. So it's very welcome. But I also welcome as well the £5 million from the Levelling Up Fund. Yes, we get limited time to put bids in, but that happens all the time, doesn't it? And that's something that we're very, very well equipped with dealing. Our officers are on these issues as soon as we hear about them, and I'd like to thank all of our officers for running with this as soon as we were made aware of it. It is tight scales, but our officers are very used to dealing with that, and they are I would suggest they're very efficient at getting to the place that we need to be as soon as possible. So yeah, thank you, and thank you to everybody who's putting in all the work behind the scenes. We're a bit like, as they say, a duck on the water, and the legs are swimming really rapidly underneath to get to where we want to be. So thank you to everyone involved.
Thank you very much. I'm just having a quick look around. There's no other comments. So Councillor Bundy has moved that report. Can I look for someone to second the report? Councillor Howell, thank you very much. The recommendations are set out on page 392 of your agenda packs. Have been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we now move on to item 16, budget forecast 23-24 as of period 11. I'd like to invite Councillor Hakewell to address the meeting. Councillor Hakewell, you have a maximum of 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. The level of overspends and continuing process of taking from other budgets to backfill things in social care, taking them away from highways maintenance, is not sustainable for this council or any council across the country, and that has been a process for the last 10 or 14 years. This report provides commentary in 2.1, general fund overspend 11.9 million, housing revenue 41k, dedicated schools grant 9.509 million. The council is overspending on these budgets, and that again is not sustainable. What impact will the fact that the council's accounts for 21, 22, 22, 23 will not be audited, and the accounts for 23-4 are unlikely to be signed off until December of this year? How can the figures being presented here today and in every report be treated with confidence when we don't have audited accounts with, in particular, validated opening and closing balances? This certainly wouldn't be put up with in the commercial environment. The other part of this is, what impact is the 3-year and ongoing negotiation regarding the debt allocation between North and West unitaries from the former County Council having on our ability to give confident financial reports? The Audit and Governance Committee heard a very clear statement from our auditors that this allocation of debt needs to be sorted, and it needs to be sorted quickly. 3 years, he said, is too long. When will this be resolved between ourselves and our neighbours in the West? The net budget in 4.1 was increased by 428k in period 2, and this was for climate change projects. What climate change projects have been achieved by that change in budget? What does this actually involve, and why wasn't the IT system set up to handle subscriptions in 5.54, where we're told there is a pressure of 160k? This consists of a pressure of 65,000 relating to the garden waste service, additional developer costs. What is that about, and why wasn't that put in place when garden waste came in? In Appendix A, we see 1.358 million in harmonising green waste collections. We were always told that this was not going to be including an increasing income to the council. And there we see 1.358 million included.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bang on time.
Almost. Oh dear. Okay. So, Councillor Lynn Buckingham, you have 3 minutes to address the meeting.
Thank you, and I won't take that because this has been a longish meeting. Just wanted to say thank you for the in-depth report. Again, we have the overspends. That hasn't changed. That's not gone down again this time, which is disappointing, but I understand it's demand-led. But that is having an impact on our other services. So just repeating the same old, I'm afraid. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckingham. And you're right, it is demand-led, and we're doing everything we can to sort of try and manage that, you know, within the services. But you know the history behind all of that. Councillor Hakewell, I just wanted to touch on, you know, your concern, and you're right to bring it up. Unaudited accounts aren't good. However, you know, I have absolute faith in our financial team here that the accounts that are presented to us on a monthly basis are where they should be. And, you know, for accounts to be qualified by the auditor, that will happen. There's resource issues, obviously, as we all know, with the large auditing companies around the country. You know, once we get to a position where they're able to look at that stuff, we can then, you know, give you the reassurance that we have as an executive. And the debt split from the county council, there's a step change in negotiations there for the two councils to come to a solution. And I'm sure that will be coming in the very near future. But thank you for your comments. Members, Councillor Bunday, would you like to introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. You've said a lot of what I was going to say. Councillor Hakewell, it's a little bit like Groundhog Day because you asked and got the same answers at the Audit Committee just a few days ago. We have had problems. We've had problems with our old external auditors. As Councillor Smithers has just said, we have absolutely every faith in our finance team to actually give us these monitoring reports, which we report to this committee on a monthly basis. So we are maintaining and watching what we're spending and what's going on. And we have our own internal audit people as well, and they do a good job and make sure that auditing's done properly. As far as the overspends goes, it's not sustainable in the long term. We've got to make sure that we've got a viable council here. We do mitigate within directorates. We do have a contingency, we do have reserves, and we do have a spending management panel. But what I will say to you is that None of this has taken any money away from highways. In fact, what we are doing, as you know, is we're putting £3 million into highways every year for the next 3 years. So moving on to the report. This report provides commentary on the Council's forecast for the revenue outturn position 23-24 based on the information available as at period 11, which is February 2024. The forecast position for each of the funds is as follows. The General Fund, an overspend of £11.9 million, Housing Revenue Account, an underspend of £41,000, and the Dedicated Schools Grant is forecast to overspend by nearly £9.51 million. The monitoring report sets out the material financial issues identified since the 23-24 budget was set in February. The Council will continue to assess and refine the forecasts on a regular basis using the latest intelligence available, and these are based on the best available data and information of the operations of this Council and represents the views of the budget holders and assistant directors. In order to help safeguard the financial position of this Council, remedies have been sought to offset the forecast overspend. The Council has a contingency budget and reserves available to call upon to help fund these pressures, but has looked to achieve alternative mitigations in the first instance before these are applied. The forecast overspend of £11.9 million for the General Fund is against a net budget of £339.034 million. This is an adverse movement of £864,000 from period 10, where a pressure of just over £11 million was reported. I will continue to remind members that the main risk to this Council, along with inflationary impact, is our demand-led services. And the main movement between period 10 and period 11 are the children's an adverse movement of £949,000. The main movement results from the Children's Trust, where forecast pressure has increased from £30.9 million to £32.54 million, an increase of some £1.638 million, and results in an additional pressure for this Council of £724,000. There's a further pressure from staffing costs, which amounts to £300,000, and minor favourable variances of £75,000. Adults is showing a £75,000 favourable movement, and this relates to lower staffing costs. Place has a favourable movement of £346,000, while enabling has a £336,000 adverse movement. Across place and enabling services, there's a net favourable movement of £10,000. The main movement relates to lower salary costs, lower running costs, and then there's income pressures of £513,000 and a net favourable variance of £177,000. The details of the movements against budget is set out in the report and summarised at the table at paragraph 4.2. The Council's overall outturn forecast for the Housing Revenue Account as of period 11 is a forecast underspend of £41,000 against period 10, where the forecast was an overspend of £128,000 against an approved budget of £38.752 million. The details of the movement against budget are set out in the report at section 6. The Council's overall outturn forecast for the Designated Schools Grant as at period 11 is a forecast pressure of nearly £9.51 million, as opposed to period 10, £9.115 million. The net spend is forecast to be £129 million, less a £720,000 from reserves, resulting in a spend of £128.623 million, against a budget of £119.114 million. This is due to the increasing pressures of the high needs block, and it is set out at section 7 of the report. With that, I'm happy to propose the recommendations of paragraph 3.1, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bunday. Councillor Binney, you indicated to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just want to pick up on the comments relating to the pressure, the garden waste service. Of course, it does say in the report that this is connected to developer costs around the direct debit solution that has been implemented. Of course, all members are aware of the transformation work that's been going on in garden waste. There was a newsletter called the Member Transformation Briefing that was sent out to all members back on the 28th of December around the work that the team have been doing there within garden waste. As people may well be aware, coding is a very unique, very specialist area. Mrs. Binley works in this kind of field in project management, and of course things come up in IT systems whereby things don't necessarily integrate as they should, and that is why we pay people to look at coding and to sort these problems out. And unfortunately, there are things that are unknowns. And in this instance, we've had a number of unknowns, and of course, the service is still new. This is only the second year of the service running. There are lessons learnt to be taken away from this year's rollout of the service, which has, I hasten to add, gone far smoother than last year. But we aim to continue to improve that through the continuous improvement journey. And I think in the grand scheme of things, the cost, whilst I wouldn't want to see a 65k pressure, in the grand scheme of the costs, it is a relatively small issue. But it's just one of those things where it was an unknown, and we have dealt with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Binley. Councillor Pentland.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to pick up on the query relating to 4.3, which welcomely highlights the direct investment from the climate change funding into the various projects that have been approved. As I say, there are various projects that come into this total. So we've got battery-operated grounds equipment, net zero and climate change adaptation and mitigation evidence for strategic planning, residential energy efficiency and energy officer posts for private sector housing, regulatory services, carbon emissions stock condition surveys for corporate properties, environmental justice data for planning, carbon literacy submission funding, carbon literacy training, fleet decarbonisation, amongst a couple of others in there. There is a detailed report coming forward as part of the annual review of the carbon management plan over the coming weeks, which looks at these, as I said, in greater detail, listing out how we are moving forward with our journey to net zero by 2030, and it's clearly welcome that these projects have got this funding secured and are moving ahead as part of the budget process as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pentland, for that. No other comments from members? Okay. So, Councillor Bunday, you had moved that report, so I'm just going to look for someone to second that report. Councillor Brackenbury, thank you very much. The recommendations are set out on page 401 and 402 of your agenda packs. Can we have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. So I can confirm that I've received no requests to consider any urgent items. That concludes the business on the agenda. I'd like to thank all members and officers and people that have been watching online, and I now declare this meeting closed. Thank you.